Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Joel Johnson, who'll be sitting in for Matt Watson today. Hi, Joel.
Hey, Matt.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. Part 3 of a 4-part series about digital strategy, digital marketing, and today, the message.
This is like the Return of the Jedi episode, like the third one. Was that the third?
You're going to start a whole debate amongst listeners about which, by the way, I just proved the theory of how we can smack things.
You did?
Yeah. As I hit the camera.
That's why I was sitting here like this.
Yeah. Usually when recording an episode of Startup Hustle, it's best to just sit on your hands.
Squeezing the nervous ball.
Yeah. I don't think our listeners know what that is, but we've literally...
I showed them.
Yeah, it's true. If you want to check out what Joel's even talking about, go to the Startup Hustle YouTube channel. Anyway, back to what we're here to talk about, which is digital marketing messaging and how that should be precise, which is exactly what we just weren't. Right?
True.
Yeah. Now, in the theory of being precise, today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by fullscale.io. We can help you build a software development team quickly and affordably. I noticed that on my notes here today, it says my co-host is Full Scale CMO or Man of the Woods.
Who's the Man of the Woods?
Apparently you are, because you were dressed like Justin Timberlake from Man of the Woods album cover yesterday. Thank you for that. So... yeah, I'm really confusing people. We're going to talk about digital marketing messaging. Once again, this is a 3-part series, digital strategy, digital marketing channels.
It's important.
And now digital marketing messaging. So we started by giving an basic overview about what digital strategy was. Long story short, it's your plan for digital stuff.
It's important these days.
Yep.
Everyone's a tech company.
Yeah,
by
sure.
default.
Well, yeah, in many ways. And then with digital marketing, that's just such an expansive topic. I mean, we covered a whole lot of different things. I like to advise people to learn how to use grassroots kind of stuff. Therefore, our digital strategy session is not highly centric around paid.
Right.
Although we will touch on some of that in episode 4. There are a lot of things that you can do to build your audience, build your brand. And what we'll talk about today is build your message. So when it comes to the actual message of whatever it is that you're trying to convey, do you have some basic pointers, Joel?
I mean, two things come to mind. Voice, right? And kind of your tone of voice, I guess.
What?
Voice?
Like that? So, well,
not the volume.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand tone. So I'll give you an example. In the books that I've written, I get the feedback from people. They say, I felt like you were talking to me.
That's good.
That's the voice.
Yes.
You want that.
You do.
Which, by the way, as I was writing my first book, I was trying to take that out of my book. And my editor was like, are you trying to take your voice out of the book? Because you're doing a good job. I was like, yeah. He's like, no, other way around. I was like, oh. And he was like, you happen to find your voice as a writer pretty quickly, and some people search a lifetime for that. So don't try to kill it.
Yeah. Same thing goes with your brand.
Yeah. And so your brand can have a voice. And sometimes it has a way about it. You know, some brands have a sarcastic tone.
They do. Some of my favorites.
We talked about MailChimp before, and their initial launch was all errors. So snail wimp. Right. You know, and different stuff like that. But that sets a voice and a tone. Really, in the end, don't overthink it. People want to be communicated to as if they are sitting across the table talking to each other like we are right now.
Honesty is a good thing. The honesty of your brand voice.
Yeah. So there's some things that can affect your voice and your tone, like an exclamation point.
Or all caps.
Yeah. It's like, all right. You know, and you got to think about some of that stuff. As someone who considers myself a marketer, I use a different type of grammar and spelling where all words can be capitalized. And sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. There's a lot to be said when we're not going to get into grammar, although we will talk about using adjectives in your voice, being lively, positive, and professional. So who is going to hear your message? Yeah, and that's
all kinds of people.
Right. Who do you want to hear the message? Who do you want to receive it? Mm-hmm. So if you're being all right, Peloton, they should be lively. And yeah, we're going to help you work out. And yeah, goals.
Climb the mountain.
Yeah, climb the mountain.
I guess pedal up the mountain.
It sounds, you lost me at pedal. But the point is in that regard, that brand is wanting to be invigorating. Or you say positive, like if you're selling a book about self-improvement, learn to be the best you.
You're good enough.
You're enough.
Smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like you.
Yes. It's questionable on some days. And then, with a professional tone, if you're selling HR services, you learn like improve your compliance structure now.
Like captivating.
Well, I mean, but to the person that you want to hear that, that professional tone, like anyone that's in HR that's trying to go for the lively tone of voice, they might have picked the wrong profession. It's not usually what I correlate with lively.
Right. So,
but you think about that and the way you deliver your message. And then sometimes, like I said, with MailChimp, you might just go with the whole opposite. Like, if it gets the attention, it can work, but you got to stick with it. You got to find some level of consistency. So,
I like Geico, the Geico commercials
with a caveman,
any of them.
Sure.
I mean, they've done a lot of them that have been more random than you would expect from an insurance company.
Sure. And the reason for that is they're taking that opposite approach, because really in the end, insurance is not exciting. Mm-hmm. Well, you actually see a lot of the companies trying to do that. Like one of them, I can't, and this tells you the brand is not strong enough, but they have the chaos guy.
Oh yeah.
And like he's always breaking something or, driving a car into a fire hydrant, which then, triggers a domino that falls over, starts a lawnmower and but that is an opposite approach, because the insurance is not exciting. It's not something people like paying for, any of that.
It's just necessary.
Yes. It's almost like putting a hat on a pig and think, no, it's not a pig.
Right.
It's a pig with a hat on it.
I think one of them had a pig with like a pinwheel and he was like kind of like a child.
Sure.
But yeah. Geico farmers, a lot of them have taken that approach. But the funny thing is, it's effective because in some cases, well done, it's memorable.
Yes, that's the key. That's the key. So we also mentioned tone, which on my notes here say flavor. I like flavor though.
People like flavor.
I mean, it's once again, this is going to go back to who's your audience, what's the situation, where's the channel. Mm-hmm. TikTok, you're going to have different flavor.
A lot of different flavors.
So the Startup Hustle TikTok channel is basically just videos of people shooting the money gun. Mm-hmm. That is the kind of flavor, in my opinion, that belongs on the TikTok channel. It's not, you're not going to find a 30-second, hi, this is Matt DeCoursey, and I'd like to give you a tip on being an entrepreneur. Make a cool business plan. Find good people. Hire people that are smarter than you. Like no one. That's not That's not the right.
That's not why they're there.
Not the right flavor.
That's right.
That would be good on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Different audience. Same thing with sometimes when you talk about the messaging, you look at Instagram. Instagram wants like no words almost.
True. Yes.
I mean, like it's shocking. That. Yeah. So, but it's a picture centric thing, and they know what responds well. Sometimes as and it's hard to tell when you're just doing organic stuff, but if you're trying to boost a post, like these things will tell you too. They'll say you have too much text. Mm-hmm. Like it's just not going to play well.
Too much being more than like 5 letters.
They're not telling you that for any other reason than wanting your ad to be successful, get clicked more, and help you spend more money.
Yeah.
So there's a reason behind it. So I'll give you an example that with messaging, be precise, be spot on, and then, understand your audience. Now, a lot of you are probably listening to this podcast because you saw an Instagram ad that had the Startup Hustle logo and it said a podcast for entrepreneurs. So how did we arrive at that? I did some research. It said that people that listen to podcasts respond well to social media advertising. And then I tried some different ads that didn't do that great. And I just kept refining. I said, you know what? Let's just make this as simple. What is this? It's a podcast for entrepreneurs. Now I even tried one that said a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. It did like 40% worse.
Yeah.
Trimmed it down. That's all we needed to say. That's really what Startup Hustle is. It's a podcast for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think the execution on that's really good. A lot of times too, people they're so afraid when they start A/B testing, right? For example, that they'll do a very slight variation. Sometimes in the past, I've liked to try something kind of like that Geico commercial. Well, I'll go way, way out there and pull the ideas back in.
A good A/B test is not a podcast for entrepreneurs, period, or a podcast for entrepreneurs with no period.
Right.
Like that's not an A/B test.
No.
That you're not, but some of the things, like I mentioned, like a podcast for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, or just the simple version, that could be an A/B test.
I think that's a good enough differentiation.
Sure. It's got to have something. So your voice is your mission statement and your tone is the application of that mission. So yeah. By the way, tone just in life can be everything. And be like, you know what, Joel, I really think we could improve a whole lot. Joel, we could really improve a whole lot.
Yeah,
I said the same thing in two different tones, and like which one did you receive? The second one, you're like, whoa,
okay,
yeah.
Did I forget to do something?
But you can stop listening.
I think it's about situational awareness.
Yeah,
looking at the channel. You like that? It's an old
situational
military
awareness
term.
Yeah, I still have a hard time picturing you in the military for years.
You mean as an airborne parachute rigger jumping out of planes and protecting freedom?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I did that.
I just think the funny part, so when Joel applies for a job at your company, he will tell you, he goes, you say, well, I ask, how are you when it comes to taking responsibility for anything? Said, well, I used to have a job where I packed parachutes for paratroopers. I'm like, okay, you probably had to have some responsibility for that, because if you didn't, someone would die.
Correct.
Which is way worse than any outcome that would likely occur here.
I hope so. Yes.
Yeah. If anyone dies here at work, that's not good. So, we love acronyms and easy things to remember. So when it comes to brand voice, there are 3 C's. Would you like to share those, Joel?
Sure. Let's go with culture, community, and conversation. Just off the top of my head.
So culture is like what makes you different or special, or like, why do you stand out?
Yeah.
Like,
and it may not.
What's the fabric?
It doesn't have to be drastic. It's just an honest assessment of who you are and what you offer.
Well, I think culture is a good fit. And all right, so even Nike, just do it.
Just do it.
That's a culture thing, though. Like there is a culture that has been built around some of the brands that we often consider fashion and stuff like that. Some of it's like, fuck you. And it's an attitude, like I'm going to put the word Supreme across this. And like, now it's way different than just that shirt. I mean, Supreme put their name on a brick and sold it for $100. Like if we can get them, if you're anyone from Supreme, if you're listening, can you please just come tell us how you do it? But that's the thing though. There's a culture around that.
There is.
That exists. And like at some point that was created, and honestly, it might have, in many ways, it's kind of like a fuck you. Mm-hmm. I actually have a Supreme shirt that's a bottle cap on it and says Supreme. And if you look at the little twisty part, it's like, please fuck off. And I know, but that's the whole point. But that's the cultural element of it. So now that said, back to your tone and your voice, they help define the culture, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So with a community play, I sometimes refer to this as tribe.
Okay.
So when tribe building is some of the most powerful result results that you can arrive at when it comes to not only community building, but your marketing message and whatever. So
why?
Well, because when you're tribe building or the community aspect, you're encouraging people to get together and find as much value from each other as they are from the parent anything.
Okay.
So there's actually a book by Seth Godin about this called Tribes, which I highly recommend. And immediately he references the Grateful Dead, which is an amazing, whether you like them or not, don't care.
You probably know that example either way.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And, like Fish, Humphreys McGee, like all these different bands have followed in the footsteps of that. But the thing is okay, so you had the Grateful Dead, and then they had this massive community of people that followed them everywhere. Now, when you talk to those people, they were just as excited about being there and with each other as they were for the show. Like half of them didn't even go to the show.
Yeah, right.
They were there for each other. So that was an example of community and of tribe. So they found as much value from the other members of the community as they found from the parent category, as we'll call it.
And they were, active participants in all of that too.
Yes. So, and that's the whole thing. Now, when you come to building your brand voice and your digital marketing message, if you can manage to get other people, like for example, you make a post. This is all right. So I made a post on Facebook a week or so ago that said, if we hosted you on Startup Hustle, what would the episode be about? Mm-hmm. And I've had like 150 responses to like comments to that. Like it's easily the most engaged thing that I've done on Facebook. Right.
Yeah.
But with that, we had people that were making comments. They were even commenting on each other, and people that didn't even know each other.
Yeah, right.
So that was an effective marketing message for a lot of different reasons. I came up with a bunch of people that could be future guests. I've got a hell of a lot of titles and subjects to discuss.
Right.
And as they continued to communicate with each other about them, they continued to define that whole thing.
Yeah, and they also proves that that theory that they're all part of the community, whether they know each other or not, like personally, and they all want to participate in the community, in the conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, that's something I've wanted to do for a while, and we tried with the Startup Hustle Facebook chat group, and it just never really got moving. So it's hard. It's hard to get people, but if you can get that moving and use your brand voice to do it. Another thing too, is just with a general brand voice is like, we identify with you. We know your pain. We understand your struggle.
We've been there.
We do that with Full Scale.
Yeah.
Like, hey, the struggle is real. Like we get it. This isn't easy. All right. Then conversation, that's just personality and authenticity.
Yeah, like you were talking about earlier. I mean, who wants to read a book unless it's something like, a thesis on, Alzheimer's and the brain? People want to have conversations. That's where they're comfortable. That's where they relax. That's where you can be the most honest and authentic and transparent with someone.
And that, some of that conversation, some things like I just mentioned, like we know the struggle. We understand you. Mm-hmm. I get you, Joel. I get you. But that was a conversational that's authentic, like we've been there before, and, I think that when it comes to building your message and your marketing, if your buyer, people like to buy from people that they like and people and products and companies they identify with. Mm-hmm. And, if that's what I said, like, hey, we get you. Like that would actually be a decent conversational message.
I think so.
We get you.
It's disarming, you know?
Yeah.
For me, it would immediately drop a couple of barriers that may be there from a psychological standpoint. Like, okay, I can identify with these guys. They can identify with me.
And they might, now the reason that all this messaging is important is whether you're paying for the ads in digital marketing, whether you're posting them organically, you have to get someone to stop scrolling.
Oh, that's hard.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. It's not with your digital marketing messaging. It's not like I've got to get everything done in this 1080 by 1080 image. No, you have to get them to stop scrolling, look at it, and then want more.
Yeah.
And in some cases do it with like 12 characters.
Yeah. I think a lot of times too, it's actually like, I think you have to touch people 7 times before they will remember you.
Oh, I was going to say call the cops.
Or recognize, I meant touch them through a digital channel, but
Depends who you are and where you are, maybe. So traffic is nice, but conversations are more valuable. I mean, that's so, when it comes to your digital marketing messaging, you need to always be asking yourself, I mean, it's really simple, the who, what, where, when, and why. Now we had this debate this morning prior to doing the podcast about like, would you want 40 visits from laser sharp targeted
potential clients,
or would you want 4,000 in general? And that's a tough question to answer. But if the 40 resulted in conversations, amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I've used this 10-8-4-2-1 analogy when it comes to sales. It goes with marketing. You have 10 people, only 8 people will even acknowledge you exist. 4 of them will be interested in what you're talking about. 2 of them might be qualified to buy it. And you're hoping that 1 does. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with any marketing. It's like you're just trying to thin that down. So, and we'll talk more about that in the execution part about why there's a reason that all of your quote data is so valuable. Mm-hmm. It's because it lets marketers be so precise.
Yeah.
Now, it's a different debate. Some people think their phones listen to them. Honestly, some of those algorithms are just so accurate. They know you like a Snickers. And then maybe your phone listens to you too. Hell, I don't know. Okay. So are we going to do a tone of voice exercise?
I mean, we can. I don't know if we were actually going to say that. That was just a bullet point.
Are we going to, well, it's on my, I'm like, it's for those of you listening, we do have some people here that help with our production, and they often ask me, they're like, well, what do you want? I'm like, Ron Burgundy reads what's on the teleprompter. So sometimes I think they test me on that. So if you hear me talking about Tits McGee later, that's Joel and Johnny.
That's right.
Testing the theory. We really do have a teleprompter. We don't use it for this, but yeah,
we will eventually.
Maybe
cautiously.
That'd be scary. So, all right. So an example of a tone of voice exercise, and we're going to use Full Scale as an example here. So once again, that's the company that Matt Watson and I own, and Joel's the chief marketing officer. So at Full Scale, our goal is to solve the problem that tech companies have of not being able to find people to work. There's 350,000 open tech jobs.
People need help.
I mean, dude, that's like real, man. That's that's just in the United States.
That's a real fact.
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, there's a negative unemployment rate for tech in every city in the United States, which is nuts. So, so that's the problem we're trying to solve. But knowing that problem exists and mentioning that doesn't have a whole lot, that doesn't get us very far with our brand message. So, the business value is like, we are client focused, right? Because we have to be.
Right.
There's no other reason the company exists. It's the clients.
That's the truth.
If the clients don't exist, then I can't employ 200 people.
Client focused also means that there's open lines of communication between the client and us. There's no middleman. Yeah. We've taken that out. So that's a truth, right?
Yes, very much, very much. Our clients get full direct access to the people that work full time for them, as they should. Mm-hmm. Now, on the flip side of that, we also say that we're developer centric. Now, that is a dual phrase in our marketing message, because that's not only for our clients, it's also for our employees. Mm-hmm. You need your employees to identify with the community message you're conveying and the brand that you're selling. Otherwise, it doesn't it's hollow.
Right.
So,
I mean, you want them to care about.
Well, that's the point. If they don't buy into it, so you have as much of a marketing message to refine to your own team and within your own walls as you do outwardly, because you can convey it all you want outward. And if you finally get the people inside the doors and you're like, wait, I thought this was Chuck E. Cheese. This is a bowling alley.
Yeah.
You're like, maybe.
That truth can go both ways.
Yeah. So some other things that can be business values and also great in your tonality. So we say quick, affordable, and solutions. That's like what we're focused on. Like we want to make it fast, easy, affordable, and help you find solutions.
Right.
Like, and straightforward.
Yeah.
Because for example, when a technology company thinks about having to fill one position, they're like, "Oh, we got it." And this isn't something they do all the time, every time. So they're like, "God, and maybe we're not experts on assessment. Maybe we're not experts on interviews." And then you start looking, you're like, "I got to talk to a lot of people. I got to do interviews now, but that's going to take me away from what I'm doing." So, like I said, like quick, affordable solutions, like those are precise.
They are.
Notice that none of those business values, those are key words. Those aren't even phrases because guess what? We live in a world that's scrolling by.
Scrolling by quickly. You have what? Like, know this, a second maybe?
That might even be too much.
It's probably high.
Yeah. So there are, Joel, are you familiar with any behaviors what do consumers want from brands and digital marketing channels?
In my opinion, I think they want honesty first and foremost. They're going to be able to sift through whether or not you can actually, you can stand behind what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And that goes back to what I was just saying too. It's like there has to be belief inside the walls of the castle.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise people aren't going to fight to defend it.
They aren't. They are going to.
Good castle reference.
That was.
Yeah. That was not pre-planned. Do you know that there's a DeCoursey castle in Ireland?
Is there?
Yeah. It's really wild.
Do you know what your family shield looks like?
I don't. I'm American. I've never even been to Ireland.
Yeah.
And I'm adopted. So I'm not even Irish, but I'm from an Irish
43% Irish. For real.
I don't know.
Okay.
You are?
Yeah.
Well, then you're more Irish than I am, but my family's got a castle.
That's true.
There's
weird. Probably a Johnson castle. It's in like Sweden though.
I mean, Johnson.
Johnson.
Are you related to Johnson and Johnson?
No.
If you were, you wouldn't have to work here.
That's probably true.
It is true. But there was a funny documentary that was filmed by one of the members of the Johnson and Johnson family about rich, like aristocracy type children. And it like Trump's daughter was one of them. Like some of the other people on there, and they put that out, and they all sued him because it was just made them look terrible. Right. So, but that said, you talk about the way that you're perceived. Like they thought that they let that documentary be filmed, and people will think we're fun. Like, no, dude, I don't fly in a helicopter to a club in Manhattan and then take it back home.
Right.
I don't have a butler. I can't identify with that. And that's that honest part of it. I have a hard time identifying with that, but honesty is about, it's more than just telling the truth.
Right. In that case, a story about how Johnson & Johnson became what it is would have been much more interesting. And I think the backlash from the Instagram influencer version of just rich kids doing whatever they want would have been much more impactful.
It was definitely more interesting.
Oh, for sure.
But it doesn't mean that I was like, oh, well, it did feel honest, actually. Honestly, I cannot relate with what you're doing. Friendly. How about being friendly?
Yeah. I mean, it goes without saying there. You can't be... I don't know. Can you think of an example of a brand that you spend your money on or believe in?
It's not friendly.
That doesn't come off as friendly.
No.
Right.
No. I mean, no.
If your goal is to...
I can't even come up with an example.
I know.
Can you?
No.
That's my point.
I guess
because it doesn't work.
Well, I would say this, like in the service industry, have you ever had a rude waiter?
Oh, yeah.
Waitress, bartender.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be in service. It could be anywhere.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, people generally want a friendly experience no matter where they are.
That's why I'm not a waiter.
I was a terrible waiter. I was super friendly. I was just really slow.
I wouldn't have been either because I would have quit. helpful. How about helpful?
Helpful is always good.
I think that's a consumer behavior that consumers want. But that's, back to the messaging. We can help.
Mm-hmm. We have solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key. Keep in mind, people are buying things for a small number of reasons. They want to save money. They want to make money. They want to increase their status. They want peace of mind. They want to make some kind of improvement. There's a fear of missing out, that they're going to miss. These are some of the things. There's also like convenience is a big one. And that's why Amazon crushes. Like, dude, I bought a bunch of shit on Amazon last night. I'm taking it with me to Cebu. And I knew that I bought it. I did it from my bed. And This is why retail's failing.
Right.
Because it's so convenient.
I
know it's going to be here. I'm leaving this weekend, and I'm sitting there at midnight on a Tuesday, and I'm like, I got to know I'm going to get this before Friday. Because if it comes on Monday, it's too late. Yeah.
How often do you change your purchase if it says cannot deliver by tomorrow?
I'm usually fine with the 2-day, but if it's sketchy, I wouldn't have ordered if it was like somewhere in between February 28th and March 3rd. No, that's not going to work for me.
No. Even if I don't need it, if I find that message, I'm like, I just don't trust that anymore. I really need that 1-day, 2-day confirmation.
Yep.
Guaranteed.
Right. Well, but there's a level of reliability and helpfulness and transparency that you grow. That's good branding. All right, let's talk about don'ts.
Don'ts. Don't not reply to people who are reaching out to you.
Wait, what? Oh, don't be unresponsive.
Don't be unresponsive.
Oh, okay. How about annoying?
Yeah. Don't do that
don't
either.
Be annoying.
I mean, these are pretty straightforward.
How about spammy, offensive, or inconsistent?
Yeah.
I mean, spammy's tough. Because what crosses the line
is different for a lot of people.
Can be,
yeah.
And like, I when it comes to digital marketing channels, as long as you're offering, if there's some value and your posts don't immediately lead to like, so what? Who cares? You can throttle up some volume.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that like more than one post a day is spammy. Now, if it's just like, if you have 6 pictures that were all in the same setting, like bundle those together.
Yeah.
It's not 6 different posts, or just pick one.
And I think one of the things that comes off as not spammy is using kind of that friendly, helpful, those tone of voices that, okay, I'll give this a few more lines of reading this email before I pass judgment.
Yeah. And then inconsistent is just sometimes like even the appearance. Like you want to give a few comments about brand standards.
Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah. We're building them out now.
Well, and some of at Full Scale, I mean, some of them we've had, but brand standards in general are like the expectations. Like we use this type of font. This is our logo.
Yeah.
It's green.
This is the style.
It is green. It is not red.
It's not red. It's not any color but green or white.
We were talking about that somewhat because even those that consider themselves experts have to refine things. So we've had a big debate. So at Full Scale, we have the Full Scale logo, and then we have a little circle with an FS in it, which is good when you need an emoji or something that fits well in a circle.
Yeah.
But realistically, as much as I would love for it to be different, the Full Scale brand isn't so strong that FS is always going to be identified or recognized. So we refer to that as our secondary thing, but it has to things that are secondary. Okay. The moon is a secondary piece to the earth.
Fair enough.
Right. So it's a complementary thing. So when the consistency of your brand, like, too many people make logos that don't make any sense, that I can't even read what they are. And then that's like just what they're posting. And I'm like, this is worthless, because now Nike can do that with a swoosh. That was my example this morning in our meeting. I said, 3 stripes, and everyone's like, Adidas. Okay. And then when we say 4 stripes and you're like TJ Maxx or pay less, like I would love to even be 4 stripes and have people spit my name out. Like on some level, they've built enough of a brand to know that there's an imposter that works. But you know, you have to be realistic about what your overall brand is and what it does, you know, and like what the value is. Like
the swoosh wasn't as identifiable in the second year of Nike's business.
No, now it's everywhere.
Right.
I mean, literally everywhere.
Consistency is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's by itself. Sometimes it's got Nike below it.
So I'd like to talk about keeping our brand voice strong and memorable. Was that good?
That was.
Well, be distinctive, be consistent, and be relevant. You know, back to the consistency, like, all right. I see a lot of people do this, man. They like try to get a little wacky. And they're just way off brand message.
Quirky? Yeah.
It's not even that. They're not even close.
Right.
You know, it's like they, you know, you run in an HR service and you're like, hey, this is me bowling. I'm like, what? You know, so separate some of it. Now that's tough because a lot of people push the personal brand. You know, and there's validity to that. But at the same time, you got to keep it relevant. You know, as we kind of round out this episode and, you know, the overall message of this, I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, where would you want to start in closing?
Well, I think reinforcing your brand beliefs. You know, we've gone through in some of these episodes and even this one just talked about like really honing in on who you are going to talk to, what you're going to say to them, where it's going to be, the tone of voice, the flavor of what you're saying, all of those things combined, you know, what do you believe about your brand?
Yeah.
And you need to be 100% sure that that's the case. And then that's what you start communicating to people.
Right. But internally and externally.
Both, for sure.
I think one of the things with today's episode, and we talk about, you know, the overall brand and digital marketing messaging. I mean, they were talking about brand messaging and I at Full Scale, all right. So there are internal brand messages that are just as important as the outward version. So like in our office in Cebu City in the Philippines, I have a brand message that we have established and delivered for recruiting. Okay. And it's got like 7 or 8 little bullet points or the benefits of working with us. And it's not just like some of it's top pay. Yes. Sure. Top benefits, but top clients.
That's important.
Like I can pay you really well. And I can pay you really, really well to come do a shitty job you hate. You'll still quit.
You will.
Yeah.
They always will.
Yeah. So the question is like, you know, and the same thing goes with it. I've actually, you know, you would think at a service company or some companies think, hey man, look, I'll take the business. We turn down clients all the time. I actually had a meeting. It was over a month ago, but I sat down and I told the lady, I said, look, I'm not sure we're going to be a great fit. I'm going to have to get a little deeper into figuring that out. And then the other person that was in the meeting was there. And she said, after I left, she's like, do you think that he's going to want to take our account? You know, but like part of that is establishing our voice and our mission. And that's that like, you've got to be a good fit.
Why wasn't she? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, you know, so at Full Scale, there's a few things that we really require there's a few things that we've learned. Me bringing you in as a client to just fail right away is not only a distraction to us, because the lifetime value of your account's dog shit at that point.
Right.
The majority of the work that we have to do is upfront, getting you paired up with people that will do a good job for you, getting you started, all of that. And so, you know, in that case, and then sometimes it's about, you know, are you equipped to handle what we do? We're realistically a staff augmentation company. If you have no staff to augment, then I have to make sure that the guidance. So you have a history with design. The worst clients you say, well, what do you have in mind? I don't know. Whatever you think is best.
Can you make it bigger? Can you
make it cool?
Can you put
I don't know. I just want to see something different than what we've got. Like that's the worst input ever.
Right.
Ever.
You've found someone.
Because then you spend a whole lot of time and you bring it back and none of these are really what I'm looking for. Okay, so what exactly are you looking for?
But that's someone who doesn't have any brand beliefs.
Yeah.
Because if they did, they would come in with a very clear vision and clear statements and clear execution.
And sometimes in that case as well, because I consider myself a defender of the people when it comes to my own staff. And we've talked in the past about personality styles, and when people are stressed, they exhibit the worst qualities of their own personality style. Like it's just science. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, I was concerned about resources. So part of the thing that I try to avoid is immediately signing up clients that are resource strapped. Because I've learned pretty quickly that they micromanage the account, they get stressed out, they freak out. And, like we have some clients that are so big that they have paid 4 people to sit there and do nothing for 2 weeks because they didn't have their own shit together enough to get them work and orders. And like they didn't stress out about that because they weren't resource strapped.
Right.
In some of those cases, those that are resource strapped would be freaking out. They're emailing, can I put my account on hold for 2 weeks? No, you cannot. That's not how we do this. Right. And that's not how we're going to do it. Yeah. So in some of those cases, it was just clarifying that. And I didn't want to get too far off track here, but that brand message, that was me outlining the ideals, the things that are important to us. I said in the beginning, we are client obsessed. Mm-hmm. I'm not obsessed with your success if I just shove you into failure. Yeah. Yeah. And then really the main thing is protecting our own brand identity. So in certain situations, all right. So if you're not equipped to handle what if I'm positive that your shit's going to fail, I don't want you as a client because we could do the greatest job in the world. You're going to implode and blame me. Right. And it's just not worth it, man. No, it's just not worth it. I don't want to be a party to that. I don't want to be like, hey man, it's almost like helping someone kill themselves. It's like,
well, that would make our mission statement. We're client focused.
Yeah.
And that's it. But the developer centric side is important.
Well, it's important too, because another thing as well is, the personality styles of a lot of our employees, trend towards the B side, type B personalities, and they don't want the change. They don't want to be in a constant state of stasis. They feel like they failed. And when you're in a business like ours, I always have to handle that because one client can end, fail, pop, send them back or do something. But those people still work for me. Yeah. And when you're benching your starters, it takes it a little while for them to get that out of their head.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
All right. So moving on and, kind of rounding this out, and we're going to get into the execution part in the final piece of this series, but you need to be prepared to monitor your engagement. And that also includes things like goal tracking. And we didn't get too far into that because that's an execution thing. But you have to start giving some thought to it. And that begins by saying, before you start any of it, what do we consider successful here?
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important with anything. And in the last, 10 years or so, I've really started asking myself that because it's the only way you can say that doing anything is adding value. And if it's not, it's something you should probably consider not doing.
Yeah. And, the final point, and I say this a lot, is with marketing, there's only 3 words that matter: test, test, test.
Yeah.
But the thing is a test without some kind of comparative anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, what are you testing?
What are you
at
learning?
That point? And I like giving real examples here. So at Full Scale, we're doing tech services, and we were looking at LinkedIn ads, which are kind of tricky and weird. They're a little different than other stuff as we're learning. But, for example, if for $5 a click, if I could get 400 clicks, like actually $2,000 to acquire a new user or client is not remarkably expensive for a company like ours.
Right.
So then the question is, well, how do we do that? Or like, would that be successful? How do we measure it? And, we're going to really get into that in the execution part. And it's not hard, but it is.
It takes a lot of thought.
And it also just takes doing things like putting some tags on your website and creating some goal paths and determining like what's a win.
Yeah.
And making sure that you can actually measure stuff. And the reason that that's important is as you begin to roll out your digital strategy and you've got noise coming and things going in 6 different directions, if you have no idea later on down the road what's actually working, how do you know what to focus on and what to stop doing?
I find often you'll go back to step 1 and say, oh, we did this one to 80%, but now that since it's not complete, maybe we need to go back and refine and finish this step before we move forward.
Be good at one thing before you try to be good at 6.
Yeah. So by the time we're here at step 3 in message, you should be dialed in and lined up, knowing what you're going to say, knowing where you're going to say it to get ready to execute.
Well, based on that, I'm going to go ahead and end this episode so we can begin to execute. See you soon.